Hello students, welcome to our session on stock and commodity markets. So in today's video, we shall be studying about commodity markets, which comprises of your fourth and your fifth chapters. And the topics that I shall be covering for you in today's video are primarily related to your examination point of view. So now let us have a look at what do we understand by the term commodity. So commodities are those items which are necessary for our everyday life. So this can include cereals, it can include pulses, then oil and oil seeds, and fiber, like something like raw jute or cotton, and energy. So here we are relating to crude oil, petroleum, and natural gas and metals. So when I'm speaking about metals, I'm referring to both precious and non-precious metals. Relating to precious metals, we are dealing with gold and silver, and other metals, other non-precious metals, we will be dealing with aluminium, then you have copper, zinc. So all these things, trading tends to happen in quite an organized manner. Now, what do we understand by the term commodity markets? So commodity markets refers to trading of. So we had just seen what is commodity in the last slide. When you're trading in those commodities, we are dealing with commodity markets. So there is a trading of precious metals, energy, oil, spices, and so on. Spices includes cardamom, then you have pepper. So these are a few of the spices which gets traded. Now, when I'm speaking about commodity markets, it can either take the form of a physical location or a virtual location. Now, when I'm speaking about a physical location or a physical market, a small instance like of me going to a shop and purchasing groceries, me going to a shop and purchasing seed oil, me going to a shop and purchasing, let us say, cereals or rice. All these things are examples of me operating in the commodity markets. Commodity markets also takes a more formalized method. Now, this is where we trade by way of virtual markets, wherein we are dealing with these commodities by way of some thing known as commodity exchanges. So what are commodity exchanges? We will just see a few slides from now on. And if you have a look at the second point over here, you can either, it can be traditional physical holdings, or it can be in form of futures contracts. So traditional physical holdings means right now, it's a spot contract. So right now I'm purchasing some cardamom, and right now I take delivery of the cardamom. So it's a spot transaction. Futures transaction is, I make the transaction today, I agree upon getting the transaction done today, I fix the price also today, but the delivery will happen on a future date. So it can be by way of a future transaction also. So who are the participants in commodity markets? You can either have banks or any kind of financial institutions. So the purpose of banks and financial institutions like an insurance company or a mutual fund company operating in a financial market is just for gaining profits. And by making use of the price differentials, they try to buy at a lesser rate, sell at a higher rate, and thereby they just want to make profits. In other words, they are dealing with something known as speculation. We will just see how speculators behave in a few minutes from now on. Then you have corporates. Now, corporates may indulge in trading with the commodity markets because, see, many commodities act as a raw material for these corporates. Jute, cotton, then you have crude oil, then you have natural gas, you have the non-ferrous metals such as aluminium, copper, zinc. All these things act as a raw material for many of these industries. So they need to get into transactions to purchase these commodities. In the process, they should not face any loss. So we will just look into that again in a few more minutes from now on. Then individuals. Individuals may be traders, small traders, those who indulge in buying a commodity and selling that commodity and thereby making a profit in the physical markets. So there may be other dealers who are dealing with jute. I may be a wholesaler. I may be a wholesale dealer in raw jute. I will buy raw jute in bulk and I will supply it to the other smaller retailers who are dealing with jute. These people will they might ultimately sell it to a small scale or a medium scale industry for them to carry on their business activities. So traders, individuals can comprise of traders, or individuals can comprise of speculators also. So these people can also participate in the commodity markets. And you have, of course, the brokers who are transacting on behalf of the clients. They definitely have a big role to play. It's only because of them we can enter the commodity markets. We cannot enter into commodity markets by ourselves. We need to approach it through a broker. So these entities can further be classified into three main groups. They can either be speculators, or they can be hedgers, or they can be arbitrators. So what do we understand by speculators is, see, speculators are those individuals who take a view on the future direction of the markets. So these individuals can either take the position of a bull or a bear. If they take the position of a bull, they are expecting that in the future, the prices of the commodity will increase. So thereby, they take a long position. In other words, they take a position where they are buying the commodities, expecting for the commodities to increase in the future and thereby sell it off in the future and make a profit. Or some of these speculators can also take the position of a bear. So such speculators expect that in the future, the commodities are going to reduce in prices. So they sell, thinking that later, once the prices go down, they will purchase them. So this is a way how speculation activities occur. Next, you have another category of people known as hedgers. So let's just have a look at how hedgers operate. So who are hedgers, first of all? See, those business persons or traders who are dealing with commodities obviously deal with price fluctuations also. Now, let us say an aircraft company. For an aircraft company, aluminium is one of their main raw materials. So it could be a Boeing or Airbus. So Boeing or Airbus wants to purchase, let us say, aluminium. Now, they do not want to purchase aluminium now, but they want to purchase aluminium after 3 months. So in such a situation, what might happen is, in those 3 months, the prices of aluminium can go up. They may not want to purchase it right now because there may be issues with stocking up this raw material or the commodity, or it's only after 3 months their production is going to increase, during which it will be more feasible to purchase this aluminium at that time. So stocking up an inventory will be a problem if you buy it right now itself and try to hold it. So thereby, a company might be requiring to purchase a commodity after 3 months, but in those 3 months, the prices of this commodity might increase. It can also happen the other way. There may be a seller of a commodity. A trader is holding some cotton with him, and this trader is trying to sell it. As of now, he's not getting any customers, but there is a possibility where a customer will come up after 6 months. Within those 6 months, the price of cotton can come down. So it will become a loss for the seller. So to prevent yourself from such losses, in case you're buying, prices might go up, it will result in a loss for you. In case you're selling, the price will go down, which will also result in a loss for you. To protect ourselves against this increase in price or a decrease in price, derivative instruments like futures and options comes to our help. So these business persons or these traders will buy a futures contract in case they feel that in the future, in the later days, the price is going to increase. Or they will sell a futures contract in case they feel that on the later days, the prices are going to reduce. Similarly, when I'm speaking about options, a trader will take up a call option in case they are buying, they are taking the position of a buyer, and they are scared where in the future the prices will increase. They will take up a put option or an option to sell in case they are a seller and they are scared where in the future the prices might go down. So I'll just illustrate this hedging concept with a small example here. Just have a look at this. It's a very hypothetical example. Now see, I'm speaking about 1 gram of gold, but in real life, when I'm transacting gold in the commodities market, they will not deal with 1 gram or anything. It will be a minimum. Like for example, like 1,000 grams of gold, or they will deal with it in terms of lots. Okay. So anyway, just have a look at this hypothetical example, what I have given here. I want to buy 1 gram of gold after 3 months. I'm worried about an increase in price. See, as of now, the value of gold is somewhere about 3,000. I am worried where after 3 months, the value of gold might become 3,500 or 3,600. Or it may become 3,800. I'm really worried where the price of gold will increase. So thereby, after 3 months, if I buy gold, I'll have to spend extra, which is like a loss for me. So thereby, in order to offset my worry, I buy futures worth 1 gram of gold whose expiry is on 3 months. So in my real life, when I'm thinking of buying gold, I'm planning to buy it after 3 months. And what quantity of gold am I planning to buy? I am planning to buy 1 gram of gold. Similar to the quantity I'm dealing with and the commodity I'm dealing with and the time frame when I will be transacting, similar to that, I will take a futures contract. So thereby, I take up a futures contract of 1 gram of gold, similar to the quantity that I want to deal with in the real life, which is going to expire after 3 months, the time when I will be entering into a transaction in the real life. So what happens is I buy a futures worth 1 gram of gold. Let's say its expiry is on 3 months. So by the end of 3 months, I need to be in a safe position so that even if the gold increases, I will not incur too much of a loss. Have a look at the next line here. Now, for that 1 gram of gold, a futures price is 3,200. So what does this mean is at the end of 3 months, irrespective of whatever the price of gold might be, my transaction is going to be for an amount of 3,200. So what exactly happens here is after 3 months, let us take for example, the actual price of gold after 3 months ends up being 3,600. So being a speculator in the commodities market, if I'm not taking physical delivery, I will be cash settled. What do you mean by cash settled here is the transaction of the future price is 3,200. The actual price after 3 months. So 3,200 was the future price when I entered into the futures contract. So the meaning of this is irrespective of whatever value might be there in the future, I do not bother whether the value of gold is 4,000 or 5,000 or 2,000 also, my transaction is going to be for 3,200. This is in case of a physical delivery. But commodity markets may not always be in terms of physical delivery. They can be cash settled also. So thereby, what happens here is after 3 months, the actual price of gold is 3,600. In such a situation, my profit. So when I'm trading in the commodities market, what happens is to my account, to my trading account. A trading account is something where I open a trading account with a broker. I will deposit a small amount. It's something similar to a savings account, something similar to a bank account. Whenever I make a profit in the stock market, that profit gets added to my trading account. Whenever I make a loss in the stock market, that loss gets deducted from the trading account. I think I would have explained all these concepts in the class. So if you can just remember back on that, you should be able to understand this. So the profit over here is 400. So 400 rupees will be credited to the trading account, which is ultimately going to go to that person's savings account, which he can use it for himself. Okay. In case after 3 months, the price of gold was 3,700. The profit would have been 3,700 minus 3,200, 500. 500 rupees gets credited to the trading account, which will move to the savings account, which will be used by the person. Supposing the price of gold after 3 months was 3,300, the profit will be 100 rupees, which will get credited to the trading account, transferred to the savings account, taken by the person, withdrawn by the person for their use. So profit of 400 is made because of this transaction. Why do you call it as a profit? You call it as a profit because if you had not taken the futures contract at all, you would have ended up paying 3,600 for that 1 gram of gold. But because of taking a futures contract, you're paying only 3,200 for that 1 gram of gold. So it is for this reason, because of taking the futures contract, I am making a profit of 400. Rather than paying 3,600, I am paying only 3,200. So obviously it's a profit of 400 for me. So this 400 rupees will get credited to my trading account, which can get transferred to my savings account, which I can withdraw. All right. So profit is 400. Hence, I am spending in my real life transaction from whomever I'm buying gold. I was supposed to buy gold from Mr. XYZ after 3 months. So in this real life transaction, I have come out of the commodity market. Now I'm dealing only with that XYZ from whom I'm going to buy 1 gram of gold. So after 3 months, 1 gram of gold, although it is 3,600, out of my pocket, I will be spending only 3,200. That is the money which the trader is already having, or I am already having with me. And the extra 400, what I will be spending is what I had earned from the commodities market. So thereby, although he's paying 3,600, he will not feel that heat. If he had not got into this futures contract in the first place, he would have paid up 3,600 from his pocket, his own money, 3,600 he would have had to pay, or I would have had to pay. But however, since I have taken up a futures contract, that futures contract has given me a profit of 400 rupees, due to which, without me doing any work, just because of the price fluctuations, I gained a profit of 400. Because of this 400, I'm paying only 3,200 from my pocket, according to whatever I had planned. And the remaining 400, I'm paying from whatever profit has earned. Thereby, I have withdrawn it from my account and I'm using it up for this purchase of gold. This is the way in which hedging actually works. Now, moving on to another participant in the commodities market, you have someone known as arbitragers. So arbitragers are those people who buy from a market where the price is less and they sell it in a market where the price is high. See, at 1 o'clock on Tuesday, in the Bombay Stock Exchange and in the National Stock Exchange, let us say gold was being traded. In the Bombay Stock Exchange, the price of gold was 3,100.50. In the National Stock Exchange, the price of gold was 3,100. So in one place, it is 50 paisa extra. In National Stock Exchange, it is 3,100. What will a trader do is, what will an arbitrager do is, he will buy from National Stock Exchange at 3,100 and immediately sell it the next second itself. Less than a second itself, he will execute the transaction and sell it in the Bombay Stock Exchange for 3,100.50 paisa and thereby earn a profit of 50 paisa. This is for just 1 gram of gold. If he is dealing with many grams of gold, his profit can be quite huge. So they are making a riskless profit here. It's not that unlike speculation, where in the same market, I'm waiting for the prices to increase to sell it off. I'm comparing the price differentials between two markets and thereby buying from that market where it is less and immediately selling it in a market where the price is high. It's actually a situation which occurs very rarely, but in a situation, in a case where such a situation arises, the arbitragers benefit out of it tremendously. What are the benefits of commodity markets? The first benefit of a commodity market is price discovery. So the demand and supply for commodities depends upon several factors. See, prices are fixed based on the demand and supply for commodities. Demand for commodities or the supply for commodities, that is, people will buy commodities or people will sell commodities based on several economic conditions. Like, for example, they will look at the weather forecast, whatever the news reader might have said about the weather forecast. Supposing they have said that, okay, this time the rains are going to be excellent, they can expect agricultural crops to grow very well, and thereby they feel that it will be a good time to purchase these commodities. So they will indulge in buying based on what some economic experts view. Some debate or something might have happened on TV, or they might have read an article in a newspaper. They will feel that, okay, in the future commodity prices are going to increase, thereby they will end up purchasing. Supposing they are anticipating that in the future some kind of civil unrest or something is going to come up, or some kind of political instability is likely to arise, some kind of supply shortages are likely to arise. Whenever these kind of forecasts are made, they will expect that there will be a lack of supply, thereby the prices might increase. So keeping this in mind, some people will think that in the future prices will increase, so let me purchase the commodities. So based on some variables, the demand and supply happens. Based on the way in which this demand and supply happens, the prices are ultimately arrived at. So the price at which the buyer and seller decide to transact, many buyers and sellers, they decide to transact at a certain price. That particular price will get reflected on the trading terminal. Then have a look at your second point here. You have something known as import-export competitiveness. So what happens with your import-export competitiveness over here is, you will be having lower priced imports from foreign countries. Now, obviously, our company has to survive among these lower priced imports. Now, if they have to survive, they should not face too many losses. If they face a loss similar to the example what I discussed with you over here, then what happens is they will not be in a position to grow their business. They will not be in a position to diversify. They will simply have to keep making strategies to manage their losses here. So obviously, when you have to remain competitive, you need to cut short your losses. The only way to cut short your losses is by way of taking up futures contract or an options contract on commodities. Then, having a look at the next point here, you have something known as portfolio diversification. So normally an investment person, an investor, normally may be having some share, they'll be holding some equity shares of company A, they may be holding equity shares of another company, equity shares of a third company. Along with this, they may be holding some commodity futures also. Now, normally there is a inverse relationship between equity shares and commodities. If the direction of equity shares is coming down, normally the prices of commodities start going up. So whatever loss an investor might incur because of having invested in equity shares, because of the lowered prices, it will get compensated because of the increase in the commodities prices. So losses tend to get offset. So thereby it becomes a safe position for the investor. Then hedging and price risk management, I think I've already discussed this with you a couple of slides back. Moving on to the next point here, something known as price stabilization. There are some commodities which are extremely sensitive to elasticity in demand, price elasticity in demand. What do we mean by price elasticity is, I'll take an example of two commodities here. One of them is, let us take for example, ragi or little millet. And another example, I will take the example of, let us say, jawar. So ragi and jawar, that's also a form of a millet only. So supposing the price of ragi per kg is, let us say, 30 rupees. Price of jawar per kg is somewhere about, let us say, 32. Now, price elasticity of demand means that a small change in price leads to a huge change in demand. From 30 rupees by any chance, see, prices are extremely fluctuating. In the commodities market, prices fluctuate a lot. So from 30 rupees, supposing the price of ragi increases to 32 rupees per kg, a large number of people will stop buying ragi and instead they will divert to another kind of a healthy cereal, jowar. Now, let us say jowar costs around 31 per kg. All this while people were buying ragi because it's 1 rupee less. But because of that increase in 1 rupee, many people will stop purchasing ragi and instead purchase jowar, which is 31. Supposing the price of ragi increases from 30 to 32, 2 rupees increase, rather than purchasing ragi, they will stop purchasing ragi and instead start purchasing another equally healthy commodity, jowar, for their meals. So thereby, obviously, when such situations happen, the person who's dealing with ragi, the trader who's dealing with ragi is going to face a loss because huge amount of demand starts slumping. It starts coming down because of that minor price change. But at the same time, he cannot afford to keep the prices at 30 rupees only. What will happen is he may get demand, but he may be facing losses over here because he may be buying from somebody else at 30 rupees. So if he's he'll be buying from someone else at probably 31 or something, and if he's going to sell at 30, he's obviously going to face a loss. So we do not want to face such situations. So thereby, what this trader will do is the trader will take up a contract for a futures contract in the commodities market. From the futures contract, he will make a certain profit, the way I had just explained it to you a few slides back. Now, in such a situation, this trader can afford to keep the prices at 30 rupees only. He may face a loss. It will look like as though he's facing a loss, but no, whatever loss he's facing over here because of selling at a lower price will get compensated by the profit that they have made in the commodity futures market. So thereby, they're not going to make any loss as such, because of which they can afford to keep the price at 30. He need not even increase it to 32 and affect his demand for the product. Credit accessibility. Now, financial institutions will mostly give loan only to those traders who are hedging their positions in the commodities market. Because we have just seen a few minutes ago that if you do not hedge your position, you can face a lot of losses. If your company faces a lot of losses, your business is obviously going to be in trouble. No bank will want to extend a loan to a business which is facing trouble. So it is for this reason that if the bank or the financial institution feels that the trader has appropriately hedged their position and will not be facing any loss as such, they will be more willing to extend loans to such companies at lower rates of interest as well. Then improved product quality. Very interesting to note that the commodity exchanges, they not only deal with help in transacting commodities, they also provide warehousing facilities where the commodities can be housed, where the commodities can be, an inventory of commodities can be stored. And they also accept only those commodities which are properly graded. So a grading is done. In fact, if your commodity is, you have to gain access to the commodity exchanges, you need to have a certain quality for your product. Only then the commodity exchange will accept your product. In order to maintain that quality, in order to ensure that the quality is there, they will be given grades. So a higher grade indicates that your commodity is of a higher quality as well. So whatever products are purchased from the commodities market, especially when I'm purchasing it from these commodity exchanges, you can be assured that the quality of these commodities is going to be quite good. So it is for all these reasons, it is best to take up trading with the commodities markets, especially from the point of view of business people and traders. There are basically three main commodity exchanges in India. All right. So the first one is you have something known as MCX, Multi-Commodity Exchange. NCDX, National Commodity and Derivatives Exchange. And you finally have NMCE, National Multi-Commodity Exchange. The first two, MCX and NCDX, are headquartered in Mumbai, whereas NMCE is headquartered in Ahmedabad. So basically, if I explain to you about MCX, I think even NCDX and NMCE also more or less fall in place. So, and it's very interesting to note one more thing. See, commodity exchange is also a form of a company only. The way in which Wipro or IBM do business, what software services Wipro gives. In the same way, multi-commodity exchange is also a company which provides a service of helping in buying and selling of commodities. So it serves as a platform from which commodities can be purchased and sold. It is also a form of a business only. Being a company, being a form of a business, they are also eligible to get listed under the Bombay Stock Exchange. In fact, multi-commodity exchange is the only exchange in India which has issued equity shares to the public. It had made it in the form of an IPO. So they had issued equity shares to the public, and thereby it's a public limited company. So being a public limited company, they are also eligible for getting listed in the Bombay Stock Exchange, in the BSE. So that it's very interesting to note that one thing. No other this one exchange, whether it's a National Stock Exchange or Bombay Stock Exchange, none of these are listed. They can get listed because they are also companies only. But it's only not even NCDX or NMCE. It's only MCX, which is listed in the Bombay Stock Exchange. So the kind of products that they offer is they offer both futures and options trading. Options trading, they offer it only in gold. Okay. Now, options trading is not given for any other commodity. It's only for gold. Options trading is given. On the other hand, futures trading is given for aluminium, crude oil. Then you have agricultural products like cotton, pepper, cardamom. All these things are traded by way of agricultural products. Certain indices are offered by the multi-commodity exchange in the form of ICOMDEX. All right. So commodity and derivatives exchange in the form of ICOMDEX, they offer certain indices like ICOMDEX composite, ICOMDEX bullion, where we are speaking about gold, ICOMDEX base metals, ICOMDEX crude oil, so ICOMDEX. So these are the indices. The way in which NSE offers an index known as Nifty, where the top 50 companies are part of this index. Nifty offers other, NSE offers other indices also, like NSE sectoral indices also, NSE Bank X, they will be offering NSE IT. So there are so many indices what they offer. In the same way, multi-commodity exchange also offers several indices under the banner of ICOMDEX, ICOMDEX. So ICOMDEX gold, ICOMDEX base metals, ICOMDEX crude oil. So these are some of the indices which comes under this one, multi-commodity exchange. And they also have a very sophisticated information system called as ICOM RIS. So what is the purpose of this ICOM RIS? It is an information system which gives updates on the movement of stock in the warehouse, real-time updates on the movement of stock from their warehouses. Supposing more number of commodities are coming into the warehouse for selling it to someone else, the ICOM RIS, it gets updated with an increase in stock. So it is basically an automated inventory management system. So as I had already told you, real-time information about the commodities in the warehouse, it will be shared with this inventory and information management system. So from your exam point of view, from commodities markets, these are the topics which are of prime importance. So as an 8 marker or a 15 marker, see, if you know what is MCX, I think NCDX is also more or less similar. I shall share you the notes regarding the history, the growth and all those things, that you can just have a look at it. I will send it to you in the group, as well as I will upload it on Campus Technology. All of you can refer to that. So thank you for now. Bye.